Okay, good afternoon. Calling to order the April 25, 2022 Lake Washington School Board Study Session. Let the record reflect that all board members are present. Under the guidelines for attending board meetings, Proclamation 20-28 the Open Meetings Act, the Records Act proclamations, there remains a prohibition on in-person public meetings, but an exemption for public meetings that comply with the business meetings found in the miscellaneous venues guidance. That guidance states that board meetings may be held in person with no restrictions on capacity, no physical distancing requirements, provided that all current and now modified basic government requirements are followed. The board values public participation and engagement in the meetings of the board. We will continue to comply with all laws related to open public meetings and all current emergency requirements related to miscellaneous venues. Those guidance requirements cannot be met. The board must hold its meetings remotely and provide access via audio and live stream. The board will continue to notify the public of locations of its meetings through the meetings tab on board docs on this district's website. That's www.lwsd.org. Board meetings, study sessions, special board meetings will continue to be live streamed on the district's website as well. If you're not able to view the live stream, you may call to listen. Phone number is 425-936-2893, conference ID 377. And finally, at this time, it's planned that all future meetings will continue to be in person. So we have one item on the agenda for the study session tonight, and that is a continued discussion of OE 14 and the indicators for that. So Dr. Holman, did you, we already got it up, great. Did you get us started?
Absolutely. And so tonight, as President LaLiberty mentioned, is the ongoing conversation and discussion around interpretation and indicators for OB14, anti-racism, anti-discrimination, equity, and inclusion in education. The board held study sessions on both March 19 and March 28. And this is the third discussion around indicators in interpretation. I believe the board will probably finish the first discussion of the entire policy tonight, as we just have a few policy components remaining. After that, I will take it back, work with my team to bring you a responsive, updated version of the interpretation and indicators with the goal of getting it formally adopted so that we can move forward with monitoring OE14 this monitoring season. And when I say monitoring season, that's before the start of the next school year, knowing that pulling the data and making sure we have available data is part of this process as well. And so we have had discussion. Let me just make sure I'm through 14.8. So tonight we will start with policy component 14.9. And as with prior meetings, we'll just go component by component, and really it's around discussion, making sure that the interpretation is aligned, and if there's questions, comments, or requests for modifications, I go ahead and document those. Then a discussion about indicators, and the evidence would be forthcoming from those indicators. And so 14.9, we'll go ahead and jump into that, states that the superintendent will provide culturally responsive and safe methods to address concerns, grievances, or violations of this policy, particularly related to racist or other discriminatory actions. So you can see the interpretation there. As you know, at the beginning of this this monitoring report, there's a set of interpretations that really do relate to the overall policy. But if there are components here that need additional interpretation, it's important to make note of those now. And then you can see our indicators of compliance, some things like evidence of a public process, procedure for reporting. So that really is the documentation that there's an actual and legitimate procedure in place related to this policy. Second bullet indicator of compliance, evidence of safety from individuals making a report. Evidence of safety, is it from or probably for? Yeah, individuals making a report. Evidence of stakeholder engagement to ensure process for reporting is culturally responsive and considerate of the unique needs of those reporting, and the percent of individuals making a report that indicate their concern was resolved. So some of those, as you can imagine, there's relatively accessible data. If you think about that last bullet point there, that's a process that we would have to develop if that continues to be an indicator that we want to have as part of this. So with that, I'll hand it over to the board.
I was wondering if there was potential to add something about how clear communication of the process.
So an indicator about the communication.
Or like, maybe it's even just rewriting the first one, evidence of clearly communicated public process procedure for reporting.
Oh, hey.
Yeah, there's that.
Yeah. So for the evidence, let's call bullet points 2 and 3. Evidence of safety from individuals making a report. That's one example. What that are you proposing having perception data? Survey perception data, I guess.
It's almost like a exit report.
Yeah, so if somebody makes a somebody who reports at the end, how would that work?
So it could also be, there's probably two different ways we can do it. One would be the actively seeking information from those that made a report.
Yeah. Or
passively the not receiving reports of retaliation.
That's right. My initial reaction is the former, is because rising to the level. If something rises to the level of somebody's reporting retaliation, then that's one that's obviously not safe. But I think safe to me, individuals feeling safe. You could feel unsafe and still not feel that you're retaliating. So that the process, something about the process, was uncomfortable or difficult to deal with. Okay. And so I guess it would seem to me the report for the mechanism would be some sort of an exit question. I don't have the exact answer for how that would work. Just an exit question with those who make the report. Yeah, it's difficult though, right?
Is this also, sorry.
I'm just gonna stop crackling. I'll think a little bit right now.
Is this also where we would have the procedure or like where consequences would be outlined for violations, or like what are the results of the reported action if found to be valid? Is this where we say that there is a protocol that is followed and this is what it is, or is it every case is a case by case basis? Or
so when you started saying that, I felt like it was case by case basis. I think the challenge with almost developing a matrix for this equals that is the nuance in every situation. There's always a variable that's different about one situation to the next.
I think a sentiment that's felt a lot when issues of safety or concerns are reported and then like a guy reported it, that's great, nothing happened. right? So I guess, how do we complete the circles?
So that goes to the fourth percentage of individuals make a report that indicate their concern was resolved.
Right, but
That's, I'm following you on this. A procedure for reporting is different than a procedure for resolving. Having outlined procedures, for associates to know what's going to happen if they report violation.
right, kind
And
of like what are the
understand,
steps that are gonna happen?
and to some extent, it's something where it's really important that people can see what those steps are in the abstract, because they're going to be HR related, therefore they're not going to be able to see the specifics of resolving their situation. In those cases.
Even if it's a protocol
Right.
of, this isn't necessarily what's gonna happen to you, but this is the steps that will be taken. So if you report, you will be contacted by a member of the team to discuss, the report, X, Y, Z. If it's the process, we will always do.
And so I guess my wonder, it might already be in administrative policy, so it's probably just pointing to what the specific.
So evidence of a protocol for investigating.
Yeah.
Report
And result.
End result.
and result.
My pause is the result part.
Right.
And so I'll just have to get some guidance from.
And resolution.
Yeah, I mean, once their concern is resolved, that's not going to mean something. But at the same time, it's sort of, that assumes that there is a procedure by which we get to that solution. And I know that there are internal things that would be for staff reporting something around within building. But this is the external reports, and then how do you report back to them that something has been resolved? At what level of detail wants understanding. But in order for people to feel that it has been resolved, that there needs to be the systems around that. I'm actually not concerned that we don't have them. I'm pretty sure that Matt knows how to do this. It's just important that for this indicator compliance that he is supposed to.
Great.
I guess the one other Mark, I'm sorry. Wow. I apologize. Yeah, absolutely.
I think we have to be very explicit in some manner. They, parents feel when they are kids reporting bullying, they report this, report that. They constantly say, I never saw any assault. And of course, we have to say this, because confidentiality and all that is valid. But the kid who was bullied, the kid who was heard the issue of racism, whatever, they have known they put their bottom line for a good reason. No, not just for a good reason, but because there was actually a result of them sticking their neck out. I'm not saying that we're going to get a gold medal, no. But the idea they have to know that some actions were taken, we're working to resolve this, and if you don't see a change in activity, if you can see the same garbage going on, come back to us, because apparently whatever we did didn't take with that individual. But that's been one of the complaints I've heard from parents. Well, they did this so and so, they had a talk with so and so, and it was resolved. Well, procedure went through, but apparently it kind of fell on deaf ears. And often it's a person who's complaining that is told, take a different lunch, go in a different hallway. So you don't encounter it, but it's like kid feels like he or she is being punished for what he reported about someone else. And I understand the desire to try and keep people separate, but it really feels like the reporter is being punished. So we have to figure out a way to make it more apparent that actions have been taken. We're not going to give you detail, but we'll tell you, here's the procedure, here's what will happen when someone does this, or this. So we take them. If you don't see any changes, come back to us. Otherwise, you're just going to get a lot of resentment and parents thinking it's all show and no getting.
What you just said also kind of caused me to wonder about just report, part of monitoring is just what were the number of reports that were made and how many went through a complete process? Just like as an initial kind of broad brush stroke.
How many made it past the person they reported to? Was anything done? Did the teacher, the schoolyard supervisor, or whoever, did it go beyond them? Was there anything really done beyond that? But I think, that's the concern that, it was swept under the rug, which it probably wasn't. It was a lengthy procedure, but when they don't know it, it really looks like it to them.
Yeah, do we ask our families? I know we used to ask them something around, my child feels safe at school, or do we have that type of question anymore? Because it gets to your point, Mark, is we only know about the ones that enter into a formal process.
Right.
It's kind of, if it doesn't get to a formal process,
Right.
then it'd be interesting if we're still asking a question like that. That probably relates to this as well, around my child is safe at school, or,
So what would kick off that formal process?
so
Meaning if I tell a research, a playground supervisor, does that necessarily kick off the formal process?
So there's certain reports that the expectation is that they get reported to essentially administration so that they can, notify a parent and their child of their rights. And not every, so in the majority of our policies, which is actually supported by OSPI, there's both a formal and an informal process, because some complaints can be resolved in an informal manner, meaning we're working with all the parties, yet the individual reporting always has the right to move it into a formal process. But we would, Madam, is it correct, we would know both of those, both formal and informal? Or is it any time they let's say a HIP complaint, it has to be documented on a HIP form for us to know that?
So it depends.
Yeah.
It depends on, so for example, like an informal Title IX complaint, sexual harassment, we would have awareness of. So we monitor that, because at any point in time it could go to formal. Or we might even choose to say we're actually escalating this. But there's a lot of things that might be dealt with behavior resolves, and it's considered informal. But what we might classify as bullying. There's the lowercase bullying that is just somebody's being mean, and then there's what would actually rise to our definition of bullying. So it's a little bit hard to say, because there's a lot of these things that happen that hopefully get resolved so they're not escalating.
So who makes that determination of this is tackle bullying versus lowercase?
So either a student or parent can escalate and actually submit
They have to
formal,
make
they could, or that the adult of every grade 2 building administrator looks at that and says, hey, this is actually, there's a severity to this that prompts us to go through a process.
So, and I think this is where my question from before comes in about, is there a set process or a protocol for this then? Because right now it sounds like it's a little bit arbitrary, whether or not the parent or the student knows that it's their right to escalate it, if they feel safe to escalate it, if they think anything will happen if they escalate it, as well as, whether or not an administrator, deems something as more serious or not. Those are very soft parameters, right? That can be influenced.
Yeah, and they're spelled out in procedure. So there's language that actually in terms of defines what those are and what that process looks like. And there's an element of being subjective.
Finish my point. Not only does the procedure go through, the parent or the student who has been harassed, bullied, whatever. They need to be told that something has happened, because if they don't, if a parent gets an email from the school saying, okay, your son, daughter reported this, it was taken to this level, we have taken these kind of actions. And if your child reports that they see no difference, we need to know this. And I think then parents would appreciate the fact that you've reached out, you haven't forced it into their hands to decide whether or not to bring it back. You invited them to bring it back. And so it's a little bit less of a, oh God, am I being a whiner? Am I being justified? What's going to happen to my kid if I report it again? All those sort of things.
Chris, did you have anything on that being a topic?
I'm extending this. It's interesting. I was thinking about it from the perspective of administrators, and existing structures basically are set up in such a way that the administration has to encapsulate it, write it up, and submit it into the system. And it would potentially be easier to count the numbers of cases if it were somewhere of a simple form for an event report from the public side, where they could actually tick off what they think, which part of this they classify. Do they think this is a Title IX violation? Is this staff or is this student? Just in terms of capturing up front the number of events that people think they've reported. Because in OE 14, we've got the opportunity to something out there, and I'm trying not to put a huge burden on the administrators to try and decide what is. It would be a new way of measuring, but at the same time, provide a safe and simple way to submit grievances. That's a simple form where you just tick the boxes, and the person reporting basically says, here's what I think it is, and would allow us to then aggregate those numbers for board level. It also gives you sort of a checkbox of follow-up. Has this been resolved, so that you can go back to check on that. But anyway, I existing structures to have with priority administrators are all capable. There's value in having people by themselves as they report, checking the boxes that give us the numbers.
I'll continue the bike back up, so I'm going to switch topics.
I was thanks for the comments. Okay, thanks. Oh, but Matt, go ahead.
Yeah,
Jump
I
in.
was thinking too, it's-
Well, a couple, just been trying to track things to respond to. The questions have been asked. So, first of all, in terms of, we've been working with Panorama to institute family surveys that we can do consistently, and been trying to map that against what we're wanting to monitor within board policies. So questions regarding school safety will be ones that we will begin to track and do with Panorama on an annual basis, and so we'll be able to monitor and get some longitudinal data that way. To just kind of on this subject, I think we currently monitor handling complaints in OE 3.2. And so I just pulled that, actually the board's taking action on the comments on this tonight. So I was looking to see what do we have, how do we kind of track this under that right now, so there's kind of this interesting crossover where some of what we're talking about right now almost duplicates 3.2. And so for me, the key term here, what differentiates this from 14.9 from 3.2 is the key term of culturally responsive. And so I think it'd be beneficial to try to unpack that because a lot of what we're talking about, there's certainly, I think, ways of improving customer service within our current schema, but it's also like, what is the board, how is the board wanting to kind of interpret culturally responsive, and what would be the ways in which that we might be able to show that in a way that's distinct from what we're currently doing. So I think that track the three things that I was on.
I was just gonna, the culturally responsive component, that's the focus. And so we have a process, but is that process working for everyone? It's a process we've got to define. It means and it's sort of a hierarchy, sort of ladder that you go through. have to sort of know the system of who we talk to. And so are there more responsive ways that we can set something up that actually addresses those better? I think education ombudsman we put out there a few times, and there's different systems. There are even the idea of having a way that I could individually report, but somebody has to. So how do we culturally, how do we address those things that that system we set up is the one that's comfortable for our system?
Okay, so you're actually steered this a little bit closer to what I was going to talk about. So, the first sentence of your interpretation is to interpret this to give stakeholders have access to a well-articulated process, procedures, report grievances, concerning grievances or violations of ordinance. And I think that, so then if the indicators of compliance, the first bullet point is evidence of a public process for reporting. I think that is the indicator of compliance before that sentence. But my wonder is whether we want perception data for that too. And so evidence, because we're going to have perception data for that individuals believe they can, that they feel safe reporting, but I think evidence data first that stakeholders believe they have access to a process, that they understand or have access to a process.
That it has a resolution.
Well, and yes, exactly. That is the fourth bullet point. The individuals making a report indicate their concern was resolved. Right? But I think that individual, I guess, perception data of whether our community, of whether they, I haven't fully articulated this, but I think you're nodding enough. I think you understand the direction.
I'm also considering, when would someone report that they have knowledge of a system?
Well, I think it has to be part of it has to be part of the survey about everything. I believe, or I believe I can report that there is a process for me to report grievances or problems. Like basically it's just to put it in regular human English.
Right.
I mean, I would, I would hope that, if my son were asked the question, I believe there's if somebody says something racist to me, and then I can, that there's a process for me to complain about it, right, and have it resolved.
Right. At the beginning of the school year, if I recall correctly, there's information sent to the parent that, to look at this is, look at this area, these are the rules, these protections are there for your children, blah, 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 blah. It's the section that probably perfectly 1 out of 100 parents read. Maybe I'm overestimating. But that would be an area where I think we need to explicitly say, we want you to know that if your son or daughter encounters a problem with blah, 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 you want to give a laundry list or you just want to say anything, that there are procedures. Please know that they are here, and if we find out page X or Y, and that way, when you do ask the question, do you know there's procedures? If they say no, well, then they probably, like some parents, I won't say me, probably, didn't read it as thoroughly as they should have. Now, that said, it's not their fault. It's just a matter of they need to be aware that there's a process.
And yes, and that's actually what I was going to get to. I'm not saying I would, when I was articulating in lieu of the first bullet point, I think that is an important indicator to have, having it. Yeah, okay. Director Troy, Director Police.
So I guess this is a different way for me to phrase it. Trying to say it earlier. In the superintendent interpretation second sentence, it talks about stakeholders having a sense of personal ownership through the reporting process. So when I hear reporting process, that to me involves an incident happens, a student goes through whatever protocols say that this happened, notify authorities, and then it stops there. But in the in 14.9, we're talking about culturally responsive and safe methods to address concerns, right? We're not only asking about the initial steps of the report. I think that's what is missing for me. We're not addressing the entire concern of the previous issue. We're not because entire situation, I guess.
So part of it's the interpretation as well.
So building on the culturally responsive, because I think that's how we would strengthen the indicator. So as opposed to an evidence of a public process and procedure for reporting, it's evidence of culturally responsive public processes and procedures for that. Potentially it's more than one. And that this is in regards to the diverse needs within our school. And I think you can think of that through all of those, because that's, I mean, I appreciate, Matt, you're bringing that up, is what's the difference between this and 3.2, and that's how to sort of tease out the niche of where this is. Similar to the 3, stakeholder engagement through a process for reporting is culturally responsive. That's really the first one too.
Well, I'm looking through, because I've been working with Panorama, I was looking through to see what items we're planning on asking that might specifically touch on elements of this. And I don't, it's not holistic, right? We're not going to be able to get all of it, but touch on elements. And we came across two survey items that we are planning on asking that might be helpful. So one is asking families to respond with the spectral responses to do you feel unsure about how to communicate with the school? And another item, you worry that adults in the school will treat your child differently if you raise a concern. And the extent that family days is a little bit more difficult for us to disaggregate because we have to ask them to self-report, self-identify, but that would be the intent, that we'd be able to, we'd ask folks to give us some demographic information. That might at least allow us to get the sense of safety, not necessarily dispute resolution or, if we close the loop, kind of do they know how to report, communicate with the school, and do they have concerns around it? I think speak a little bit to the conversation.
Are those questions that Panorama has tested? And
Yeah, they're in there.
so not questions we've asked.
They're not questions that we've
Or
asked.
written, I mean.
They are not benchmark, so I wouldn't have national benchmark data. That's the only challenge with that part.
But they've done some level of validation with it.
Chris, so just on this one, I as far as the interpretation, I know you're working on the website, that is challenges, but under the search function for our website, it should clearly lead to something. How do I report sexism? How do I report racism? How do I report fully 14 violations? At present, I don't get anything that's an obvious connection. So a button on the cover. Well, a button perhaps, but then you might have too many buttons. But the search function should lead directly to something that helps you do what you want to do. And
I think one of the things we're not thinking clearly about, or perhaps we haven't seen it yet. If we don't address the problem effectively, our parents don't be able to address it effectively. It's going to be addressed to us later. And it's always better to fix the problem than to fix it before. I've always said before, if you put out embers a lot faster, you put out a house fire. So let's do it now, do it right, and don't say, well, I think, that's before. One of the things I can understand the schoolyard supervisor saying, no, it was just Johnny acting like Johnny, or Susie acting like Susie. And say, okay, I spoke to them, and they, well, there ought to be some record that they've spoken to Johnny or Susie 10 times in the last 2 weeks, or in the last 6 months, whatever. But at some point, if the kid is still having that behavior, or if it's a staff member who's having a certain behavior, I mean, if you had a staff member reporting another staff member doing X, Y, Z behavior, you'd be written down by the first time, I would assume. And because the second time around, floodgates open. First, to be quite frank, the first time the floodgates open, at least 1 or 2 doors. And to treat the kids any less with their defense against their fellow students than you would have staff versus staff, that ain't right, folks. And the parents are going to let you know it. And we've already seen that the legislator has to take note of something, do something with it. It's not going to necessarily always be done in a manner that will be as easily administrated, equally administrated. And again, the parents aren't going to feel good about it. They realize that we're having something imposed on us as opposed to us doing something about it and showing them we're doing it. They have to know we're doing something. I had one contact me just a few weeks ago and said, this happened to Johnny, and reported to the teacher, to the principal, to this, they went all over the school. I said, okay, here's your next steps. They had no clue. And I said, I understand. I wouldn't have either. I think her child was in the early elementary school. But they had no feel that anything had been concluded, anything had been done, and they're a matter in the morning. I would have been. Simple. And let's take it to the degree. Let's say it was sexual harassment, let's say it was racism, whatever. You're talking lawsuits here. It's one thing about with Johnny Root to Susie, or raspberries to somebody, do something very innocuous but still prove. It's another thing if it steps up. But that will go to, caution and litigation, even if it never comes to me.
Okay, Director Choi, any last note of the next? Unless anyone has any last comments on it.
Right.
Really fast, I can't remember. Is Panamera offered in?
It is offered in multiple languages. Take me just a second. Exactly. But it's available in all of our top 6 languages. Sure.
And then is the communication for participation in the survey communicated in?
It will be. We haven't done so. Embarking on family surveys that's kind of the next step. So we've been working to try to align and get a consistent year after year plan with our student perception data, with our policies, and the next steps is to try to do the same for staff and students, so for families and students. So we actually haven't done it yet. But yes, the language access is definitely shared interest.
And then my last question was around reporting. I know we've got, are we being cognizant about making sure that reporting is available in different ways for communities? So are people able to call and speak the language that they can speak in making things? Are they able to write in their native language? Are they able to translate it? So that, that's a barrier for a lot of families. They don't speak or write in English. They're not going to feel like it's the same child if that's the only way they can put it. So I would say in for the culturally responsive version of this.
What Blair was saying in the right language, it's, as go back to the point that Eric made earlier, if whatever the verbiage is can't be understood by anyone who is speaking the same language, who is a native speaking English speaker, if you will, if they can't understand it and you try and translate it into another language which you're not familiar with or you're not, how understandable is this going to be for that parent? So it has to be in plain, simple verbiage. I won't say English, but plain simple verbiage. Not edge speak, not hero speak. It has to be what you be telling your neighbor over the fence. Playing it to the person next door. Otherwise, goes, what the hell is going on? What did you mean? Especially if you, as we were saying, not your language, you translate it into your language and you're not sure that you're really interpreting it right. And it's not your culture even, beyond the language barrier, but it's antithetical to your culture. You have to do this. Makes it even tougher. I would,
Director, please, your final word on.
Or to under superintendent interpretation, I would add a definition of cultural response. That would have to be
We
flushed out.
you can borrow one, you have one. For, I guess at the top of 14. In the overall OE 14 definition.
So we address it, flush each in, that's. Yeah, that's good.
Okay.
Okay,
1410.
1410. So it states collect, disaggregate, analyze, and utilize data from multiple sources, including academic performance, participation, surveys, focus groups to identify inequities and develop and implement strategies towards eliminating those inequities.
I don't know. Have it. Yeah. Does anyone have any comments on the indicators for 1410?
The only piece I would have is you have evidence of focus groups. I imagine it could be broad in the fourth bullet point. It could be broader than that or other methodologies besides focus group. To seek input on strategic initiatives, could be key informant interviews, it could be multiple different methodologies that are out there. So I don't know if you want to say participant, I get a lot of research things in there, but different information gathering techniques, different, whatever, I don't think focus groups.
Okay, I guess we if anyone has anything, we can go back to 1410.
This is our last element. Develop and maintain a culturally responsive system to analyze and allocate fiscal and human resources to eliminate inequities and promote student success.
Sorry, I just thought I was 1410, sorry.
Yeah, no worries.
I was just gonna say, this would be a great place to emphasize the addition of student voice. I know you have stakeholders there, but
And is that in the interpretation, do you believe, or the
I like both in the interpretation of
Okay.
both the interviews, but
On that 1410, the other piece is the cultural response and meeting. So the key would be that would be with diverse stakeholders as well as the remote activity. So So how do we strengthen that wording within those, similar to the cultural response of what is specific about this to this policy? Evidence of focus groups, with groups that typically, that we have not engaged with prior or that, have not, because then engage with them, they fall out of the indicators. That's not a good way. So you get a good representation within your district of all voices. And actually in that fourth bullet, it's of those stakeholders most impacted by that decision as well, are involved in that feedback.
Possible for some of this. I'm asking that question. So,
It is possible, but I'd have to shut it all down and do it, because there's a,
no,
there's a.
I'll walk around and if I can't see it, I can't see it, okay? All right.
I'll make it
But for some reason, it's not coming up on mine. I'm not being the
extra
sub,
large on mine.
or I'm not being the sub.
We jump down to 11 or?
Yeah, sorry about that.
No, it's okay.
I have one on 11. So, Siri just, something Director Bluser just said, and think about 11 too. And I was trying to remember for, when we get indicators for here that, how is this specific to this policy?
Right.
And some of these for 11 feel like they're, for example, the first bullet point, evidence of a documented clear budget process. Well, I imagine that's in another OE already, right? And I guess I can link that to this a little bit, but I don't know, is that really telling us whether that as part of the budget process, a culturally responsive method for gathering input has been used? I don't think so. So I would actually strike that one. I just went there.
Well, no, but before you finish it, if they don't leave it in and administration doesn't put a budget in sufficient enough to carry out that concern, it's basically a phantom budget, or there's half of what is needed or a third of what is needed.
Yeah.
That's not, that wouldn't be making the threshold, would it?
Well, if there was not evidence of a documented clear budget process, we would have issues with some of the other OEs. I can't remember the OE or budget, but I'm certain that would be,
Right.
that is, if not word for word, then very, very close.
It's OE somewhere between 2 and.
It's
No, I think it's 6, actually.
The first and
5%.
third bullet points, if they were combined, you want the evidence of a documented clear budget process that demonstrates the use of an equity analysis tool to make decisions about the allocation of resources. Because that's what's specific to it. Show that with that budget, you've been able to utilize this to be able to choose. Because you're right, the budget one doesn't.
Yes, I think I agree.
I think you can shorten it.
Yeah.
I think you can actually delete the evidence, demonstrate use of an equity analysis tool that actually answers the question.
Lastly, on one analysis.
At in its simplest form, it's a set of questions that drives an individual to evaluate something. And if it's focused on equity, then the questions really are driving towards impact on either marginalized communities, underrepresented communities. Does it reduce opportunities? So those are the types of questions that would be asked. And the kind of theory of action is if you consistently use an equity analysis tool, that it starts to help shape your policies, procedures, actions more effectively.
I don't know that we created or using somebody else's.
So as part of, we went back to in-person learning in the 1920 school year. Part of the OSPI's requirement as we shifted back was to adopt an equity analysis tool. And so we were prepared to develop our own. We ultimately adopted Seattle Public Schools tool. Is that a good summary of it? It is, yes.
That's like, yeah.
When it comes to a term like that, or when a parent is looking through the, all this mishmash online, they've actually found the policy finally. They come across a term like that, you'd be very helpful if somewhere, I don't necessarily put, no, but a flashback to a blog of what in the world I just heard or read. Because if Clay doesn't know it, and the rest of us really weren't too sure of that, to be quite frank, I know I wasn't. How would doing their six-pack deal?
I remember asking that question that we learned what it is.
And I think there's a lot of that.
We can define it, or link to it.
Yeah.
Also added to my interpretation. Yep, thank you.
Not everybody speaks it.
And similar to my comment on the first bullet point, I think the fourth, evidence of stakeholder engagement related to resource allocation. I would want to be more specific and mirror the language as part of the use in your interpretation. It is a culturally responsive method. Again, I just merely doing stakeholder engagement is not, to me, is not sufficient for purposes of OE or of this policy.
Responsibility doesn't define force. Not in a very way.
It is above. We need the search function to really,
And what I haven't done is take a hammer.
I guess it's basically the same comment for each of these, which is they feel too just sort of overall focused on budget process and not targeted enough to. Your interpretation is the indicators that you're more targeted to the OE 1411 policy.
So when I read 14, my mind goes to say, so how are we going to direct funding just for equity efforts? And where my brain goes, then I read, like, what you just saying, when you get to the indicators, that's not what you see. I'm looking for, clear, very purposeful funding that is dedicated to supporting our equity initiatives and efforts. That's not what I see. So there's a disconnect between, at least how I'm reading it.
I think highlighting the eliminate inequity piece in the policy is part of it. After these games.
Any other comments on 1411? Any additional follow-up for us?
No, I will, I'll take this and probably may bring back an updated
Yeah, let's
Stop
since we have a little time. Let's
in
talk-
May.
Let's talk about next steps. We have a little bit of time. So in May, you'll bring back basically draft two, a new draft of
Yes.
this.
And so between now and then, I'm going to schedule time with staff, particularly staff that have access to our data systems, because part of it is what can we monitor this year,
Yeah.
and what really is kind of the project plan to build out over time.
Okay.
Some things will be available this year, others will need to develop systems, develop procedures, things like that. So I think that's the other, and it's not to leave them out of the monitoring report, but some things there may just not be data available for this year's monitoring.
Right.
Did we make a point of that? I mean, there's no data available, just say, no data available at this point. Give the reason. It's a new issue, we don't have anything to go back on.
Right.
And, you know, just that way, when a parent comes across it, or one of us comes across it another year from now, and we didn't exactly memorize it tonight.
Yeah.
It'll be apparent.
And I think the other piece is, you know, some of what we're talking about is, you know, kind of aspirationally, how do we want the system to function?
Yeah.
And as we aspire to that, that also means there's change processes, there's work that has to be done along with that.
I don't have a sense of how long that next round of the conversation will take with us, and whether, and my hope is that we get, if not all the way there, the next pass through, if we're really close at the end of that meeting.
So
Just wondering,
I will try and get the board at a minimum, at least an updated document to review prior to the meeting. So you've seen it, you come with questions, comments, things like that.
Let's see, next meeting.
It'll be the
23rd.
second meeting in May.
Okay,
Um,
just trying to figure out which date.
Around. Okay, yeah, so it's 20. We have budget planning process on the study session for that channel. Okay.
We'll figure it out.
Okay, yeah, I think well, we're
So I'm, you know, given kind of where we are right now, my best guess is that the board will receive a monitoring report in August.
Yeah.
And so we want to make sure that by the end of June, we have everything squared away in
Yeah.
terms of interpretation indicators so that we can produce a report for August.
Okay.
And I'm thinking, since it will be our first OE14 monitoring, that we'll probably want to do a study session on it first before we have the public portion of it in terms of the board's meeting.
Okay. Arthur, one. Okay, great. Okay, that's the only item on the agenda for this study session. So seeing that, this meeting's adjourned. We meet at 7 in the boardroom.